Back. This is still Ondo this side. And now we have one of our correspondents who is live on the field, who is joining us now directly from Ondo State. We have Levy Joseph. Hello, Mr. Levy. All right, can you bring us up to speed on what's going on in the state as it is now?
Okay, we were at the collation center till about 5 a.m. this morning. The election was suspended because the remaining 3 local government results are yet to come in, especially for Ilaje, because of the peculiarity of that area. Because most of the polling units are on the sea, and they have to travel even 4 hours before from that side to the headquarters of that local government before the result are collated, and before they can move the result from Dokoda to Akure. That will take another 4 hours, which means about 10 plus 10 to 12 hours is needed. That's why we have to suspend it. The collation is going to resume back, hopefully the final result will come out by then. But right now we have this for 15 local governments, and the ruling party is leading as one all the local government. That's just the result for now.
All right, so has there been any case of violence from the opposition party, especially now that it looks like, or would say that the APC is leading? Has there been any violence or whatever sort from the opposition parties so far?
No, the city, especially Akure, the city is calm. There's no form of no any form of violence. We're only hearing bickerings, which are basically on the background, because yesterday it was very clear that what was at play was money politics. It became a commodity where people were negotiating 10,000, 50,000 naira, 20,000 naira. Even were played. Some were promised 10,000 naira and they got just 4,000 naira. So it was so embarrassing, so funny on the field yesterday. But for now, nobody is really complaining. There's no official complaints right now, and everywhere is calm. A lot of people are having around to go to churches right now.
So the vote buying you spoke about, which was of course something that the election observers and every other person that was there noticed. It was quite obvious that a lot of vote buying took place at the election. But I also noticed that there were a whole lot of security personnel that were around in most of the polling units. The visuals we saw a lot of security personnel. How possible was it that these vote buying activities took place? Meanwhile, we had such large amounts of security personnel in those polling units.
Yeah. Person to one of the head of executives that came to monitor the election. Why should such a thing take place? And the answer was that decided at that unit to raise alarm, and so if such decided officer do not do anything, there's nothing any security of and the other hand, that was entrenched in the rules and regulations of election in Nigeria, and that's another thing that we need that needs to be discussed and rearranged. Because this trend has become, it's not really, I don't think it is going to be a good thing for the democracy we all think.
let you go, we also know that the DSS got to arrest one of the vote buyers. Do you have any update on how that case went with the vote buyer that was arrested?
It was before we left the unit yesterday. We heard that the man that was arrested was released immediately, and nothing has happened. Even in Idore, where some people were named, the ballot box as in federal area, nothing has happened. And even there is a place, Ofosu, that the election does take place. To that word, Unit 1 in Ofosu, and they pursued all the INEC officials in that polling unit, and they did not allow election to take place in that area. Nothing has happened. Even we have every security what to do, and nothing has happened to them, you know.
So much, Levy Joseph. Thank you so much for the updates. We'll definitely get in more once the collation begins, or resumes rather. Thank you so much. All right, so vote buying, as we had said, you know, we discussed about the fact that, okay, these people get arrested, you know, and we see pictures of them with the money right in front of them. Some you see the money in their hands, and then we hear that, okay, they're arrested and they were taken away, but we don't really get to hear anything again. No prosecution, nothing. And our correspondent just gave us an update on the man who was arrested yesterday, that he was allowed to go free.
That's the challenge that we have, you know, because it doesn't seem that we don't really see this as a serious challenge to our democratic experience in this country. We don't really see it that, look, this is something that has, you know, largely killed the spirit of most people, you know, killed their interest in the electoral process, and that allowed you know, hooligans and all people, you know, who don't mean well for the state to take over everything. And that's the reason. You know, like I tried to explain before, what typically happens is that even within the polling units, they have arrangements for security, you know, to protect the vote buying. They have arrangement for INEC people to turn a blind eye. So, and then they have arrangement for, you know, in the event that they can't have that, they have arrangement for their own personal security, their own people who can foment trouble and violence, who are around there, and, you know, who would give them cover. That's what happens. So when you hear somebody arrested, it's just for appearances in most cases. It's just for the police to pretend that something is happening. But, you know, at the polling unit, somebody has been, I mean, there are some things you shouldn't be saying, but it's happening in our country. And so you can't go away from it. Somebody, security people at the polling unit have been sorted, and then if there's not an arrest, some higher security, you know, is there to protect. And in most cases, it is the opposition, those who are challenging, that would get arrested, not necessarily not the people who have the means to control security and all that. So the politicians are comfortable with it, and that's why the thing continues. And so the only way out actually is for the people to really say enough is enough. We want true leaders to represent us. We want development, and, you know, in choosing who will be our leaders, we want to look at their track records. We want to look at what they are able to achieve. We want to look at the blueprints and the agenda they're bringing forward, and not the money they are bringing, because that money they're bringing necessarily just your money. It's supposed to be a part of the money that should have been used to develop the state. But, you know, this money is, you know, and they have been stolen. That's the truth. Because how do you get so much money? Where did you get that kind of money to be sharing on the streets? You are sharing 15,000. It's small for the individual person, but look at thousands of people If that amount is given to thousands of people, we're looking at billions of naira that is being wasted, that could have been used to fix the road that leads to the place, that could have been used to properly manage election in the rural communities, where the report is saying that, results are still being awaited because of the challenges there. If you put in money, these things could have been solved. But these monies, rather than putting it in developmental issues, they would rather stockpile it and wait for the election day and dish it out, and this is like crumbs. Like somebody coming to your house, after taking all the food in your house, just taking it, he will now, then as he's eating, the bones are throwing away. He will give it to you and say you should be happy, and you are voting. You still allow the person to continue to remain in your house, to continue to control the resources in your house. That's what is happening in the country. It's a very sad reality.
It's really sad. All right, we have another of our correspondents who is also on the field. We have Kunle Ojo, who is joining us now to also keep us abreast on what's going on the field. Hello, Kunle.
Good morning. Hello, good morning.
All right. Yes, I can hear you. Good morning to you. Please bring us up to speed on what's going on there.
Good morning. Quickly, let me bring you up to speed with a few takeaways from the ongoing exercise in Ondo State. The reactions from various stakeholders regarding yesterday has been one. Majority of them commended the Independent National Electoral Commission for putting in place at least a seamless exercise for this ongoing exercise. The deployment of materials, the performance of the officials, among others. So, various stakeholders that spoke that react to the exercise yesterday give them commendation for doing a good job, at least for ensuring that materials arrive at the polling unit on time, well, the orderly conduct of their staff. Then, where there were cases of malfunctioning of the bus, they quickly responded, replaced, and the exercise continued. So, the Independent National Electoral Commission for doing a good job. Also, the second takeaway from the ongoing exercise is the issue of money politics, the issue of some of the political parties. Money is displaced. Most of these stakeholders have reacted. Still this morning, they frown at this development and they express a serious concern with the way a manner Nigerian political landscape is being turned into an avenue for sharing of money, an avenue of giving inducement, which the unanimous agree that it is not good for this democracy in Nigeria. So by and large, most of these stakeholders they commended INEC and want them to do more. And then they call on political leaders of various political parties to embark on aggressive sensitization of their members on the need to be active, to actually participate in any election, going by the figure or the voters that come out yesterday. So they emphasize the need for political parties to sensitize their members on the extent that they need to realize the importance of an election. There's an avenue for them to choose their leader. There's an opportunity for them to vote out those who they want to govern them. That they need to educate them on the need to vote during an election.
So, just as I had asked Levy, was there any instances or situations of violence as regards to the results that have been collated so far, and were there any concerns that were raised? Although, as you said, commendations were brought in, to INEC on how peaceful and how well the election process has gone so far. But while the results were being done of local government and all, were there any issues that were raised probably from party agents and all? That's from the 15 governments that have been announced.
When I was in Ondo town yesterday and in a conversation with the candidate of ZLP, he expressed concern with pockets of violence in some parts of Ondo State, which he said this for the security and the security as strictly address it, and that has been going on. Also during the collation early this morning, when it got to the son of Ondo, one of the agents of of the political party raised the concern that there was violence in some cities, and he listed those polling units where there was crisis, and he called on the official to note. According to him, he wants the election in those polling units to be cancelled due to the alleged violence which he claimed during the presentation early this morning. But the presiding officer told them that the matter will be looked into, and that they will take appropriate action, that will take appropriate steps regarding the observation which he has raised. And we expect that in the course of the exercise that will start, that will commence by the news that the matter will come up again. But aside from Ignore, during the commission this morning, aside from Ignore, there hasn't been any local government where the objection of violence or other crimes was raised.
Things that we also noticed was the fact that some of the polling units had a low voter turnout. As someone who was in the field and got to interact with some of the residents in those areas, what were the possible reasons for the voter apathy that was seen?
While I was in town yesterday, I noticed that in few of the local government and in few of the polling units, there are only few voters on ground, and so this might not be unconnected with the election exercise, the level of violence, intimidation, hate speech among political parties, and then another thing is most of the voters are afraid of security. Because for this election, I can assure you, there was massive deployment of security. Officers of the Nigerian Army, officers of the Nigerian Police Force, immigration, custom. In fact, like I gave in my report yesterday, on my way to Ondo, I met nothing less than 20 checkpoints yesterday. That at every point you need to be checked. At every point, not an ordinary check, a thorough checking at all in each of these polling blocks. So this might be one of the reasons that affected the turnout. And with the number of voters that were collected, one expects that more people will turn out more than what we have. But one is not surprised because one of the real things already raised the concern that already give a prediction that there might be low turnout, that the election was marked with low turnout for voters.
Right, thank you so much, Kunle. Thank you for the update. We trust that we'll be getting more once the call resumes.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we're back again, Mr. Elvis. So a lot has been said, and I think that was also part of the things you had mentioned at the beginning, and the fact that INEC seemed to have prepared well for this election. Or would we say the backlash, that had come at the course of previous elections and how there've been so much hiccups here and there. But this time, so many people are commending INEC for how well, the process went and how early they were there, how early the voting exercise started, and so far I think we already have like 98% of the results already uploaded on the portal. How do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, it's a good thing to know that INEC has been commended for doing a good job in so many areas. But in my view, there are so many factors that could have accounted for this.
Okay.
Beyond what people have said, beyond the backlash from other elections, beyond the fact that perhaps INEC has chosen to repent, in quotes, and do the right thing for Nigerians. I think my view is that this election did not constitute any serious threat to the incumbent political party in Ondo State, and I want to believe that this is what it's part of the reasons that there hasn't been much incidents, and in terms of security, in terms of early voting, because one of the things we're seeing is that INEC can actually do so many things to sway elections one way or the other. Like we saw in Edo, for example, in Edo South, voting commenced very late, and that can be a strategy to dissuade people, discourage people from coming out to vote. And then on top of that delay, it now rained so heavily. And then that's, coupled with that, a lot of people didn't come out to vote in those South. So that can be a strategy. But where you don't see any threat in any particular area, where you feel that, like I told you, that there wasn't anything that was going to stop him from winning this election, from what we have seen. I even saw the debates that they had, and I could see the way Agbola Ajayi was even referring to him as his brother. It wasn't a contest. I don't know.
Shouldn't it be that way? I mean, probably because
I'm not saying that you should be fighting. I'm saying that there wasn't any much differences in terms of what they were offering, in terms of what they explained they could offer. There wasn't, because you see, when you're in the opposition party, you have a role, and your role is not just to seek for votes and win elections. Your role is to show what is wrong with the current government and show how you can do it better. I didn't even see that in the debate. I didn't see that in the debate, and I didn't see much of that even in the campaigns and the manifestos that they were dishing out from both sides. And so there wasn't any threat in this election in terms of PDP taking over the state, and that would inform the way preparations are made for the election. And I can tell you for free that is largely one of the reasons that is responsible for this. But let me not be too cynical. I mean, we have seen a lot in this country. There was a time INEC did an election. Was it Anambra State or so? It was so fantastic, and we thought that template was going to become the norm. As early as last month in those states, 2 months states, we saw how brazen, how funny we still can be with elections. So this doesn't really mean that INEC has turned a new leaf. It might not really mean that INEC is now to be doing the right thing. It's, like I said, may just be that the situation didn't demand any otherwise. They knew this election was in the bag. I can tell you for free that right now there is a serious struggle for 2027, and the APC's political machine, their tentacles is so high that even people in PDP are part of them. Now, I mean, this is not just speculating. Wike is one of their strongest people now, and he still claims to be a PDP man. But if you go and ask him about what those things, for example, he will tell you that APC is going to win the election. He did the same thing in Edo, and his utterances and public discussions clearly shows that even though he claims to be a PDP man, he is one of the tools that the 2027 political machine is using. And so they didn't see any threat in the election. That's why the security agencies were not unduly they didn't want to protect anything, because they knew they were going to win this election. And that's what I think is responsible. But if I'm wrong, I will be happy if I'm wrong. Because I mean, to me, that INEC wants to start doing the right thing. To me, that in the next elections we're going to see, Shun, other places, the same template will be. Of course, that is when we can actually test INEC. Since I just mentioned Shun, that's when we can actually test INEC, because PDP is in power there, and so it is when that election comes that you can actually determine whether or not INEC has decided to turn a new leaf. And the issue of security, the reporter talked about the fact that he was in 20. Why do we need all of this? Why do we need to waste so much money on elections? Shouldn't I mean, in other parts of the world.
Just the police deployed over 22,000.
Do you know how much that will cost? Even though the police officers are not going to give anything except for some of the things that they will get, maybe to allow things to happen in different places. You know, do you know how much will be budgeted for that? You know, these are money that should go into development. You know, meanwhile, in some other parts of the world, elections will be going, we don't even know. People will still be doing their jobs, people will still be, you know, and all of that. So when are we going to get to that point where you don't need to mobilize the army, you know, for winning elections? I think it was the PDP that started that at mobilizing the army to obviously, you know, skew the votes, skew an election in the past, and the APC has also copied that template. Why should we waste money on all of that? In the kind of money we are using we are wasting on elections now. Those who are now advocating perhaps we shouldn't do elections again, but they might have a point. I mean, I'm not saying that should be the case, but I'm just saying that you know, you can't blame them for having that kind of thought, because you spend, you know, I'm not even, it won't be billions anymore. I'm sure perhaps trillions now, you know, to conduct elections across the country. And then,
well, it's almost like a norm for especially the police force, you know, and other sister agencies to deploy massive security. I mean, looking at Ondo, for instance. But I feel like for Ondo, probably why it looks like it's too much is because of the low turnout. So I mean, you just see polling units that just have very few people, and then you see a lot of security personnel in that polling units. My concern here is that we should be spending money on getting the votes out, on educating the people, on, you know, holding people accountable. We should be spending much money on ensuring that there is prosecution of people for electoral malpractice. We should spend a lot of money on empowering INEC to be able to monitor political parties spending in elections. These are the things we should be spending money on, because you see, these are institutional things that would eventually fix the problem as we go along. But this, you know, approach where you wait for election to come and then you bring the army, bring the police, when you have not done the right things that should ordinarily, I mean, one uses the army and the police when, you know, how many people are voting in the election, you know, when people cannot come out, when people are negotiating, you know, openly, how much that should be paid for their votes. That is not an election. That is not democracy. It is clearly a state capture. You know, people have taken state funds and they're using it to continue to perpetuate themselves in power. They are continuing to use it to capture the people. You know, and then somebody, okay, look at the current realities of the country with the hunger. Yes, you might not blame people for taking this change, but who has created the situation? How can the situation change if you continue to take the money from them? So my own take is that we should, you know, concentrate our efforts, funds, resources, and manpower on, you know, educating the voters, because that will solve a lot of these problems, and then ensuring that people are held accountable for malpractice, ensuring that INEC has the capacity to monitor, you know, do all the things that they should be doing based on the Electoral Act. But currently, they are only interested in appropriation, you know, money for beavers, money for security, and these are unquestionable funds that will eventually find its way into some people's pockets. Okay, so still speaking on security, I mean, Ondo State is one state that has a strong state police, and we're talking about the Amoteku Corps. Okay, I can see you smiling already. While in preparations for this election, the IG of police had actually asked the state police to step aside. So now you're speaking about, you know, trying to manage funds. Would you have preferred that probably the state police should have been able to, you know, probably just take care of it and have the police? You know,
Amoteku and other vigilante groups across the country is a whole different conversation. Okay. And the reason why many of these groups are springing up is the clear failure of the police to be able to really provide security. You know, with the widespread kidnapping at some point across, even in the southwest, you know, in those parts specifically, and even in my state in Edo and other places, you know, you can't really blame people for now beginning to look at providing security for themselves, which is what we do actually. I mean, even in our homes, we have security guards at the gate, so nobody can really. But when it comes to national assignment and action like the election, I don't know whether they're going to have the legal basis or the legal cover to be able to participate in the process. I think that is subject to debate, but what I feel is that because election management is a federal government affair. And so if that is the case, it's going to be very difficult for you to allow groups or other security groups that are not within that federal government architecture to provide security. And so perhaps that's why, you know, Boteku and others were asked to stay away. And it was the same thing that they did in Edo. And of course, the reason why they are doing it is not necessarily because they love us so much or they love the law or they want to enforce the constitution, which is saying that the security system is no. The reason why they are doing is because so that the states, no state, can use security to influence the outcome of election. So the federal government can continue to deploy army, deploy the police, and then if we want to swing elections in any particular state, they are able to do it. That is the reason why they are doing all of that. You know, but when it comes down to the real provision of security, it is our marketed vigilantes that have now, you know, succeeded largely in curbing kidnapping in many communities across the southwest, south, and the southeast. You know, even in the north, where we are battling with Boko Haram and other. I mean, today you hardly hear Boko Haram now. Now you hear different other groups. You hear what they call them now.
Kurawa.
You know, that's there. Then you also hear bandits. That's the word they use now. You know, and at the end of the day, it is the local vigilantes, you know, that are within the sphere of the states and local governments that are trying to check these security challenges that the police should only be the ones fixing. So, you know, within the current constitutional dynamics of the country, it's going to be very difficult for you to force the federal government to accept any local security in elections. No, well, yes, legally speaking, they will be right, but I don't think it's because they are doing it. It's for political, it's because of politics. They want to be able to continue to use that and see how they can swing elections across the states.
All right. So now we've seen, you know, a lot of election observers. I think one of the prominent ones was Yaga Africa and other, you know, CSOs as well. What role do you think can, you know, the CSOs play in promoting electoral integrity in Nigeria?
You know, one of the challenges, one of the big challenges in Nigeria today is that everybody is doing things for appearances. Everybody is now looking for appearances, doing things that they will be very visible enough to attract funding. I'm talking about the CSOs. You know, beyond the failure of governance in the country, one of the reasons why Nigeria is remaining where it is the failure of the CSOs. It's not enough to go and monitor elections. What did you do before the election? What kind of education did you invest in? You see, our resources, our funding, I will continue to maintain, our funding, our resources, all our actions should be geared towards preparations for elections. Not to go and, you know, because once you have the right preparation for the election, some of the issues you are raising now will be reduced. You know, if the government is failing in educating voters, in massively educating voters on, you know, the importance of their votes and why they shouldn't allow, you know, anybody to buy it. If the politicians have succeeded in putting the people in the state where they cannot refuse vote buying, it does beyond from the CSOs and other well-meaning Nigerians, you know, to reach the people and, you know, mobilize them, you know, to stand against the forces of the politicians. But unfortunately, the CSOs are not doing it. You see, I hear them talk about election day, they want to monitor election. It's a waste of time, because what are you going to do in monitoring the election? Nothing. You're not going to see. Okay, you come and talk stories about after the election. At the end of the day, your stories. I'm not trying to discount this. Maybe what I learned it to be understood. Somebody will say, I'm trying to discount their role in going to monitor the election. But when you talk about monitor the election, like you did do, and you talk about, you come up with stories and reports. all of those things will not count in the election petition tribunal. Eventually, what will count will be the law, and what will count will be what INEC has declared. How do you influence the law? How do you influence what INEC will declare? How do you influence the action of the people? The CSO should be concentrating on that. I don't see any action from them before election, except for election date. You know, the CSO there's no serious investment on citizens' education and voter education, so that we can, fix this problem of apathy in our elections, so that we can fix this problem of vote buying in our elections. I mean, vote selling, not vote buying, because vote buying is the one that the politicians do. The vote selling now, because people are ready to sell their votes. So how do you convince them that they should not, in the face of hunger and all of that? It's a difficult task, but it's a task that we must do, and the CSO are the only ones that can actually do that now. Many of these CSO get funding from foreign development agencies and what have you, and so we don't have any excuse not to invest into that process. That will not lead, so that when you are going to monitor election, you are not looking at, okay, all of the advocacy, all of the mobilization you were doing before the election, did it work? That's what should be confirming. No, they're going to confirm what we already know. We already know that there will be manipulated elections. We already know that in most cases there will be vote buying. We already know. We know all this is. How do you fix it? And the only way you can fix it is not on the election day. It's not like going to tell us what is happening in the pre-unit. It going to happen. It has been happening since 1999. So my suggestion to CSOs and other people who are really interested in this country, who wants a nation that we can be proud of, is we have to invest in voter education on all of these issues. We have to invest in pressuring INEC to do the right thing before the election. We have to invest in pressuring people in the National Assembly to do the right thing with the legal system. We have to invest in ensuring that we are able to put up a campaign that will force the judiciary to have a special court for electoral offences. Because the politicians will not do it. Go and look at it. Globally, no politicians will not develop any nation. It is the CSOs, it is the people that will force them, because they now know that the people can't rise up, the people can't question their actions, and so because of that, they begin to watch their actions. But right now, what we are doing now is we are watching what they are doing on the election day. They are buying votes. What difference would that make? It doesn't make any much difference. We need to invest. There should be, CSO should strategize if they really want. Let's take it back to rule. They had tougher than democratic government. Today, the government is they can get away with anything. They are doing whatever they like, But during the military regime, we had groups, serious groups that could stand up and defend, the basic tenets that can, ensure that you have a good society. But we don't have it today. We have CSOs now who just make noise because they want to get funding from international organizations. If you really want to make impact in the electoral process, that impact must be done before the election, not on the election day.
All right. So you believe that the impact being done, or whatever it is they need to do, being done before the election will make a difference. That's
what will make a difference. Not what you will be doing on the election day is to monitor it, to see whether what you are doing before the election is actually working.
All right, let's quickly take a look at some of the vote buying clips our correspondent in Ondo State was able to capture, and then when we go through that, we'll be back to continue the discussion. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Anticipated off-cycle election in Ondo State finally took place, but sadly, the process was completely flawed with vote buying, intimidation, suppression, and disruption. According to report finding by our correspondent Lepi Joseph who monitored the election, though there was low turnout of voters, it was a show of money politics, where the few that were arrested were released quickly. Information has it that votes were given as much as 10,000 naira per vote after casting it with the slogan "Vote Cook Soup." In some areas like Indori, where the deputy governor candidate of PDP hails from, there was violent attack at some polling stations, and election did not take the word in opposition.
Dominant feature of politics in Nigeria, particularly during elections, people, politicians, and political parties take advantage of the poverty of citizens and buy their votes. And our message to citizens is you must be resilient. Don't sell your future for the sake of this election. After election, you have a life. If you sell your votes, few thousands of naira, you spend that money within minutes, and you have the next 4 years pay a price for what you did. So citizens must be resilient, and they should not allow political parties and their candidates to take advantage of their vulnerability.
Election in Nigeria is becoming a system of the highest bidder wins. The ones who can pay more money will snatch the office and impose himself or herself in leadership position. We are turning democracy to secrecy.
A vote buyer was apprehended at St. Stephen's Primary School in Akure, the state capital. By and large, Ondo election was relatively peaceful, and as people await the collation and declaration of the eventual winner, the state was calm and peaceful.
You would think that from other times, from past experiences, they would learn. I think the citizens need to rise. If you have a multitude of citizens coming out and carry their votes, there is a limit of what votes they can buy. Because we are not living to our civic duties. Because this work is not only for the civil society organizations, for the security agencies, and for, looking at INEC. The volume, you are just a politician. They come out to buy votes because they find a few people.
Totally erode evidence of democracy that we have all fought and we are still fighting. Remember that it was announced that democracy will win if we all fight for it. This is the time for us to roll our sleeves and face reality.
Right, we're glad to have you back. There's still Ondo Decides 2024, and to carry on with the rest of the discussions, as we've seen in the report that was aired a few minutes ago, vote buying, as we have discussed, is just like the prevailing issue in this election. But again, looking at, so INEC had actually made mention of the fact that over 1,793,914 voters were expected to vote. But like we said earlier, we saw that there were low turnout. But in the midst of the low turnout, there seemed to be a high amount of youth who came out to vote. Did you notice that as well?
I mean, yes, it's encouraging that the youths are showing a lot of interest in the election. We hope that they will take this up. Don't forget that in the 2023 election, the federal election, the youths actually played a very major role in that election because they felt they saw a transformational leader that they could trust, and they came out. You can see they were singing in different places and ensuring that the votes were counted. Our youths are ready to do the right thing, but you see, the problem is that there are so many impediments that makes it very difficult for youths to be in the process. We are talking about the Gen Z generation, but they are shocked that we are still doing voting in this. they are shocked that they cannot vote while they are sipping their tea or sipping their drink on their bed. Because that's really what they want to be seen.
No one is ready to stand under the sun.
Yes, they are shocked that today we still stand for hours to go and register to vote, and then you wait for another a month and years to get the permanent voters card. They are shocked. And so if you want them to really be involved in the electoral process, they have a very easy way to do this. And technology is really what it is. And if people can easily vote, you see the kind of turnout in the election. It will be different from what we are seeing now. The reason why you are seeing this kind of voting pattern is because so many factors. First, the youth, the younger people who are struggling, who do not have the means right now, they feel that they are being oppressed by those who have taken so much from the country and from the states, and that they will eventually buy their way. And so why waste time to go and vote? And then the other impediments, like I mentioned, even the process of registration to vote can be very tedious. How do you leave your job, to go and queue for hours or even days to be able to register to vote? How do you go and queue for hours to even cast the vote when people, even in the rural communities now, are doing transactions? They can do their banking transactions on their phone. This generation, you see them do, let me not mention the name of any institution. They are going to these, new generation banks, that with the phone, with the text message, whatever it is, you can open an account. You don't need to go and be wasting your time. That's the kind of youth that we have now. And so, but our electoral system is still archaic, it's still analog, even though we have tried to bring in some technology like beavers, but beavers still means that you still have to go there physically. Sometimes you put your this in hand and it doesn't work, and all of that. So, if we fix and remove these challenges, you will see that youths will take over. And one of the reasons why this is also difficult now is because these people who have the means to buy votes, who have taken so much, some have hidden the money in dollars, in pounds, and in other currencies. They do not want power to move to shift to the youths, and so they continue to maintain this architecture that protects whatever it is that they are doing. Because the moment we shift the focus to the ease of voting that will appeal to the younger generation of today, power will completely. Nobody will be voting some of the kind of people, the candidates that we see across the country. The youth would be able to evaluate, and ensure that those who are coming in are people that can protect their future. And they will be involved. But like I said, the impediments are just so much. And and what I was talking about, when we talk about CSO, for example, those are some of the things that I want to see. CSO that will be involved and engaged with trying to make sure that voting system is such that can easily accommodate Gen Zs to come out and vote.
All right, we have an election observer, Jake Epele, who is joining us now to give us an update, a review of what he observed in the election.
So Bollywood, we can learn
Good
our own
morning.
Nollywood, Kannywood, and whatever. Can learn a
Wago, who addressed journalists, strongly condemned the ugly trend as attributed it to no small measure to electoral corruption and political inequality.
The other Africa observed a wide occurrence of vote buying across several polling units, which is becoming a permanent feature of our electoral law. We strongly condemn this practice as it contributes to electoral corruption and political inequality. We commend the Department of State Security for apprehending an individual allegedly involved in vote trading at the scientific polling unit Ward 4 in Akure. The other Africa holds political parties and candidates accountable for the negative trends observed in our election. Political parties cannot distance themselves from the persistent issue of vote buying that continues to mar our electoral process.
The African Africa observed that the exercise began calmly and orderly, demonstrating its interest in participating peacefully, adding that INEC and Transport Union Group successfully deployed election officials and materials across the state. It, however, has
welcome back. We would now quickly get back to the election observer. We have, I'm sure we still have Jack with us. Hello, good morning, Jack.
Hi.
All right, so quickly, what were your observations as regards to yesterday elections?
Yeah, my name is Dr. Jake Ebele. I'm the CEO and founder of TAF Africa. TAF Africa, we focus on disability inclusion in any process, but in context, the electoral process. So I'm here in Ondo, Akure precisely, leading the team of our organization and observers that we deployed. The situation concerning the election in Yaga, Africa, at Africa, we do present our analysis at several fronts. One is preparation. Two is participation. And three is process or provision. And then finally, we look at overall performance. And so let me take the first one in terms of preparation. INEC, political parties, civil society, we thoroughly prepared for this election. We did that by way of voter education, even though I'll speak a bit to that in the course of time. Provision of assistive material, sensitization, and activation of our technology, our own internal technology. The issue about participation is of very concerning to our organization, TAF Africa. We noticed very, very low voter turnout, worse than previous election, even worse than Edo State. The level of voter apathy is concerning, and you can see it in the result that is being rolled out. It will amaze you to know that there's a likelihood of just 10% of the entire registered voters that determined the outcome of this election. The participation is so abysmal that is worrisome. Sometimes in a particular location or a particular polling unit, you see a routine of security personnel, civil society, of the civil society, and then you would not see voters at all. In some cases, you will see 3 voters. There's a location that they recorded 1,600 or thereabout registered voters to vote in that location. As at midday, only people have come to vote. It's that worrisome. And so you find a situation where the level of voter apathy, and this is something we see in Akure. Reports we are getting from the hinterland shows worst case scenario. That is very concerning. In terms of process, I must commend INEC that in most polling units, in most polling stations, there was timely opening of polls. At this time, whatever they did, they got it right. There may be cases of late resumption, or late opening, but generally, it was handled well this time. Then, in terms of persons with disability, we saw abysmal deployment of assistive material. There is no doubt that persons, INEC ad hoc official, knew that what to do for persons with disability. But in most cases, the assistive materials were not provided. In some polling units they did, but in most polling units they did not. And so participation of persons with disability is still at its lowest ebb. And that is a huge concern. Now, in terms of vote trading, it is a common situation. In I think the worst off-cycle election that we saw open vote trading is Ondo State. That of Ondo happened, but a bit more secretive. But in Ondo State, it was an open thing. In fact, there were agents that were going around the polling station telling you vote for this political party and come and collect 5,000, come and collect 10,000. It's a play, and I must say that it's across board. It's across board. I did analyze in those states that it was a case of the highest bidder. The same thing played out here in Ondo. You find a situation where they say, somebody say, a particular political party is giving 5,000. This other political party is giving 3. The political party that is giving 3, hearing that, quickly increase their own to match the highest bidder. And the highest bidder will further increase his own. It's disgraceful. And this calls for attention because this is the path to destruction of democracy in this country. And the earlier all of us as civil society and the media, the earlier we sit down and discuss and chart a way forward, the better. Another commending, in terms of performance, another commending effort is the effort of the media. The media has done a fantastic job in reporting, giving on-the-spot assessment and reportage of election in real time. That is very commendable. And I had called on the political class not to touch innocent journalists that are busy reporting and bringing happenings to the homes of viewers. And I think we haven't heard, not to the best of knowledge, about harassment of media practitioners, cameras being seized, and reporters being beaten. I haven't received that report, but it is a commendable effort that the media practitioners are doing a yeoman job. I was in a polling station that there were fracas, and instantly one of the media organizations put it live on their channel. That's what we want to see, very unbiased media reportage. I think at this point in time, I can take a breather and just wait for your question.
For that detailed review of the election. We'll be coming back to you by 12 noon to still have more discussions on the election.
So at the moment I can sound, right?
I didn't get that. All right, that was Jay.
Right?
All right, that was Jacob Hill, one of the election observer of yesterday's election. So I have with me here, I have Barrister Wahab Abdullahi, who is a legal practitioner, and he will be joining us to have more discussions on the election. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank
Happy
you.
to be here.
All right, so we are, of course, discussing the election that took place yesterday, and you know, we've heard and had so many reviews on the election. But from your end, what you've observed, how would you rate the election exercise?
What the last observer mentioned, the issue of apathy was so notified that it gives the opportunity to political party agents and supporters, more particularly those people who are card-carrying members of parties, to be able to maneuver the system. What I mean by that is that we are the polling unit, we are about 350 voters who are registered. You observe that by the time they stop accreditation in most police stations, you only have maybe half of that number that have come and exercise their rights. It shows that Nigerians, probably 2 or 3 things are coming into their mind. If I even vote, would my vote count? Is it the issue of voting that is even affecting me now? When we talk about the issue of economy, then sometimes now people are also exercising fear that if you go to the polling unit or polling center to go and exercise, anything can happen. And it has come to our knowledge that most times when criminal issues relating to this type of thing happened, nothing, I repeat, nothing comes out of it. By the time 1 or 2 persons is arrested, take them to police station, you won't even know when the political party and some of the others in the community will go and release them, and that ends the whole show. Even if someone is killed, it is the family that will bear the consequence. So people will continue to look at it. Then we'll see how I'll be more observing what is going on in the television. So that's one of the things I observe. Then, like what Mr. Jake here, yeah, what said, the using of money. It's now, you know, when it starts like a joke, and people don't find a way of nibbling it at the ball. It becomes people don't see it as anything wrong again. People are carrying cash here and there to give to people, and when you observe that, if I have interest in voting for People's Democratic Party, at the end of the day, my vote probably my vote may not count, and I observe that somebody want to give me 10,000 naira at this economy, the census. Few people can think that, hey, if I vote for the right candidate, it will also have a positive effect on me, in short. But majority of the people, especially in the rural areas, they believe that what you get is what is your portion. So people now, they tend to, so whenever they want to have elections, you see the political parties, the candidate will be mopping up cash.
And it's something to worry about, because like the observer had said, it's almost like trade by barter, or like you're in the marketplace, or okay, how much do you have to offer, how much exactly, how much is this party ready to give, and then you weigh, and then the highest bidder gets your votes. It's so sad. Are we really going to get out of this? I mean, I had asked Mr. Elvis this question: are we really going to be able to get out of this whole vote buying? And again, before you come in and then we wrap up, we also found out that for this election there were like new trends to vote buying. So there were instances, you know, there've been issues of people collecting money and end up voting for someone else. So I think to prove that, okay, I actually voted for you, there were instances of people actually raising their ballot sheet to show, okay, I did it for your parents, which shouldn't be an offense. But I mean, we had so many security personnel there and they didn't do anything about it.
It's something that called for a big attention. Like what I've said earlier, when something happens in the society, for instance in the community, where people start play free, removing something from people's window in the night, cutting their nets, stealing their phones, and people are aware that such thing happens, the community refuses to rise up in the occasion to ensure that such people were catched and they were treated the way they're supposed to treat robbers or burglars. Criminals. Because they gradually graduate from that scene. They will start coming with cutlasses and knives in the night. Then later you observe that soon you start coming with guns. And by that time, the community will not be able to do anything. That is what exactly is happening in this scenario. The thing started like a joke. Some few years back, it is persuasion. You talk to people, we know ourselves, community. The political party supporters will go and, my brother, please, vote to our party. Then the issue of money started coming. Then sometimes they were not doing it this way. When you vote, the person that will be money will stay somewhere in the room. If it's a primary school, will be behind the primary school. Somebody will just be watching. They tell him, Mr. Ondo has a bid. But when things happen like that, it goes beyond ordinary. When people do that, they feel that it isn't cumbersome. It's part of the fact that we talk about EFCC, and DSS and other things to come and checkmate all this type of trends.
All right.
You see, people will do what they want to do.
All right. So this is still Ondo Election Watch, and I still have two barristers with me in the studio. We'll just quickly take a break and we'll be back by 12 noon to carry on with the rest of the reviews. Don't go anywhere. Do join us by 12 noon for more reviews. As for now, goodbye.